Around the summer of last year, I think that was the beginning. When I talked about my identity, people started asking me the second question. The first one is, I say, I'm from Korea. And normally there's no follow-up question, but all of a sudden people started asking me, are you from North or South? I guess the North Korean leader has been doing fantastic diplomacy. All of a sudden people started asking me the identity of South Korean, which nobody asked me before. The second one is, I own a mining company. And then all of a sudden people smiled and they were so happy to see me, which never happened before. And I figured they thought I owned this crypto mining company, not a mineral mining company. Actually, I own mineral mining company, not a crypto mining company. So these two identity questions certainly show the world is changing very fast. I'm D.H. Kim. I'm the CEO of FinHaven Technology, Inc. FinHaven, we are building security exchange for security tokens. We call them, in fact, digital securities in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. 김도영입니다. 저는 한국말을 잘 하는데 오늘은 발표 내용이 아무래도 제가 영어가 더 편한 부분일 것 같아서 영어로 발표를 하겠습니다. So you probably hear, well, by the way, I'm from, my background is capital markets. So today, my talk is mainly based on capital market experience and capital market knowledge. And probably I try to give you some domain knowledge of capital markets, how it can be related to blockchain technology. And I'm going to talk about the limitations of blockchain technology in terms of applications to capital markets, and how we can strategically overcome some of those issues, and how we are doing it at FinHaven. First, what are security tokens? So you probably hear a lot about utility versus security in the market. First, security tokens are stocks, bonds, investment fund units. You probably hear venture funds, private equity funds. So those units of those funds are also securities. Utility tokens, are they securities? Well, a lot of utility tokens are deemed as securities. That's what you hear from SEC in the United States. Then, if they are securities, they are traded, the securities that are traded in crypto exchanges, they should be traded there. So that's an issue. So potentially, those utility tokens that can be deemed as securities, they are security tokens. Exotic asset tokens. Actually, it is not really exotic, but you hear about artworks, real estates, tokenizing these assets. So what is tokenizing the assets? What's the meaning of that? Actually, if it's not a large crowd, I want to ask you questions of how you think about that. But tokenizing assets, essentially, you securitize assets first, okay? And you tokenize those securities. So it's a two-step process. Anyway, now people think we can tokenize a lot more assets that we couldn't securitize in the past. Okay. Those are security assets. Then what are securities? What are utilities? In most cases, we use Howey test. Howey test, in fact, it is a case which was determined at the United States Supreme Court, and we still use the case, and we call it Howey test, to determine if a certain token is a utility or a security. However, based on jurisdiction, certain things can be regarded as securities, certain things can be regarded as utilities. For example, France, stocks and bonds, you're not a stock, you're not a bond, then you're a utility. It's pretty simple. Okay? Nowadays, I think Malta is emerging as a crypto jurisdiction. If you go to Malta, what would they say? Well, does it have a maturity? Does it pay out dividends? Does it pay out interest? Interest in bonds, another way you say coupon payments. If not, you are not a financial instrument. So you're a utility. That's their approach. So again, how we test is more, mostly North American approach, United States and Canada, but other jurisdictions have their own definitions. So then what is a Howey test? I don't know if there's any company who issued token in Switzerland, and you probably, if you did, you probably got a legal opinion in Switzerland, and they probably still show Howey test first, and then they ignore it, and they say, well, in Switzerland, we have our stuff, so here's our legal opinion. That's probably how they go about it. First, it is an investment of money. So you got to invest your money. That's the first prong. The second prong is the investment money is in a common enterprise. So you put your money in a common enterprise where a certain management works on a certain project or develops a software or develop online platform. And there's an expectation of a profits for the investment. And fourth prong, profit comes mainly from the efforts of a promoter or the third party. So when these four prongs are met, it is an investment contract. It is a security. So let's stay here. Let me give you some quiz so that you can understand what these are. Okay? So this quiz is basically based on Canadian Securities Administration. We call it CSA, staff notice, which was issued in June. First quiz. The proposed function of the token is to use software or online platform to purchase goods and services, but the software or online platform do not exist, are not available, and are still in development. Is this token a security or a utility? Security? I hear security. Yes, it is a security. Why? The purchaser is not purchasing the tokens for their immediate utility, but because of the expectation of the profit. And who has to develop? The management got to work on the software or online platform to eventually to be used by the token purchasers. Here's the second question. The tokens are not immediately delivered to purchasers. You probably heard theft. Okay? So here you give us money, we're not going to give you tokens now, but later. Is this a security or a utility? Any answer? It's a security. Why? The software or online platform or goods or services are not yet available. Again, there are no functional platform yet. Okay? And therefore, people, the motive of buying this token as a purchaser is not to use the platform, but to gain the profit in the future. And at the same time, the common enterprise, the management should work on it. Right? Tokens have a fixed value on the platform that does not automatically increase over time or change based on non-commercial factors. Does it sound like a utility or security? It is a utility. Okay? In this case, this may reduce the purchaser's expectation of profit if tokens are continually available from the platform at fixed value. Tokens are distributed to users for free, airdrop. Is it a security or is it a utility? Well, there's no investment money, right? Because you give them for free. So most of the people, they think, oh, well, if I give them for free, it's a utility. Yes, well, there's no investment money, so it can be utility. But at the same time, you got to see over offering because usually in those cases there are certain ancillary or secondary products that are involved. So you got to look through the overall offering, see if that's a security or utility. by the way, you actually give securities or shares, so stocks or bonds to some people as a gift. You don't get money, you give them for free, it's called a gift, and you pay taxes on it, right? So just the fact that you give them for free and there was no investment money doesn't make it a utility. Here's the final quiz. Tokens are not fungible or interchangeable, and each token has unique characteristics. So the purchaser value it as a mode of entertainment or as a collectible item. Future market value of the token is primarily based on market forces. Does it sound like a utility or security? It is a utility. The value of the token may be based on its unique characteristics and not on the efforts of the others. So there may not be common enterprise. So if you completely decentralized, so all the community members, the users, if they use a platform and they govern completely, so there's no management, then that is a utility. So nobody doubts Bitcoin. Nobody asks that question, is Bitcoin a security or utility? Now everybody understands Bitcoin is a commodity, right? It's not a security. However, if somebody, you probably hear the futures market for Bitcoin, so it's a derivative product of a commodity, then it is a security. That derivative product is a security. So here are real cases. Munch. It is an Apple iPhone app, restaurant rating and those things. And they sold their MUN token, saying that the value of the token is going to go up, and it can be traded in the secondary market. So later on, it was determined as a utility between the United States of America before the Securities and Exchange Commission. So you can find that case online. Second case, Tomahawk. It's an oil exploration company. They couldn't raise money to explore, so they sold the tokens, and they said that two things. Number one, they can potentially make money in the future, and then it can be traded in the secondary market, and also the buyers of the token can convert those tokens to common shares, to equity later on. So it was deemed as a security, so they got into trouble. I don't know how many people of you here in this room are thinking of issuing tokens, but there can be one strategy. There's a transformation. Okay? What it means is that if you're developing a project and you want to issue a token, you can sell your token as a security at the beginning, and when the platform is up and live and it's fully functional, then you can turn them to utility. It is already utility because it's fully functional, decentralized platform, and users come and use them, it's a utility. So at the beginning, you can sell your tokens as a security based on securities laws, and then later on, when it's a utility, you can, just any other crypto tokens, it can be a utility token. Then why am I talking about this as security tokens and utility tokens so much? The reason is that in the securities world, since the securities are like money, there are lots of regulations, and they're quite complicated. Okay? It's not that simple. Some people in certain countries, they can buy it. Some countries, they cannot buy it. You got to have a certain amount of asset. If you go to a bank, and if you buy a mutual fund, you probably fill out a bunch of forms. And that's all KYC AML, know your client, anti-money laundering. Right? And if you get into more complicated financial products, there's more KYC to be done. They even check your investment knowledge level. And there's even suitability. So it's not just a KYC AML, and they got to make sure if we are suitable for a certain kind of investment. Now they talk about investment amount. What does it mean? In certain countries, you got to be an accredited investor to make certain investment, okay? or professional investor. But then, for example, in Canada, if you invest over $150,000, it doesn't matter whether you're an accredited investor or not. So how much you invest, that's another factor. You probably heard about crowdfunding. Crowdfunding, again, there's how much you can put into the to a certain company on crowdfunding platform. There's a restriction too. Now, as a company, when you issue your securities, in order to stay as a private company or to become a public company, now there is a regulation about the number of shareholders. So that's another restriction. Okay. Now, ownership transfer. For certain private securities, ownership can be transferred only between accredited investors or professional investors. So in crypto world, a lot of things are easy. You can just transfer ownership. You can just go across the border here and there. There's no restrictions. But then in the securities world, there are a lot of restrictions, regulations you have to follow. So when we say the world is going towards secure tokens, now it becomes a bit of a different issue, because now you cannot really use those crypto exchanges to trade the security tokens. Now you have to use securities exchange, like Korea Stock Exchange or KOSDAQ. For capital markets, then what are the advantages of this blockchain? Easier access to global markets. Yes. Reduce the administration cost. That's, if you look at the capital markets, there are key intermediaries. You place your order through a broker. So there's broker-dealer, and there's a marketplace, which is exchange, like New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ. And then there's transfer agents who take care of the change of the ownership, and they record the ownership. And then there's a depository. Okay? They are the ones who keep the entire shares. Because all you see, what you trade is not real paper shares, just numbers move around. So they got to make sure they're real shares. Okay. Because we have these intermediaries, again, depending on jurisdiction, the fee structures are different. Even exchanges, they have a different revenue model. But essentially, as a company, and we call it an issuer, security issuer, issuers they have to pay a variety of fees and lots of money. And I don't know whether, if you're in dot-com period, late 1900s, like 1999, 2000, Korean companies were considering dual listing on NASDAQ, and a lot of complaints were it's too expensive to be on NASDAQ, because over there, there's a lot more fees, and fees are quite high. Audit of trail of ownership. This is actually pretty important, because you tend to hear lots of insider trading story, but can you really get those insider trading? It's pretty hard to track them down. Universal and near real-time data source. In fact, it's about clearance and settlement. So in capital markets, when people hear blockchain technology, a lot of capital market people, they gave up on the hope of trading based on blockchain technology, but they still have a hope for clearance and settlement. So real-time clearance and settlement is a big aspect, a big element that blockchain technology deliver in terms of value to capital markets. Liquidity. So in capital markets, at the end of the day, it's about liquidity. So can you get more liquidity by having these exchanges on blockchain? Maybe. Digital shares. In fact, this is the cause of innovation. Why? The legacy system in capital markets is based on the assumption that paper shares are issued and stored in a vault. Now, based on those issued paper shares, we have all these different databases, and then we trade the shares. Then, if the real shares are not paper anymore, but they're digital securities, then the cause of innovation starts from there. Okay? And that's, in fact, how we can do the real-time settlement, clearance and settlement. And this real-time clearance and settlement is a big issue. It's in fact, much bigger than you think. Let's say there's some countries issuing their government bonds, and their interest rate is about 10%. By the way, if you look at like Brazilian government bonds, it's over 10%. And some investors, some big institutional investors, they cannot make those investments because of two issues. One, custodian issue. Two, clearance and settlement issue. Okay. So if blockchain technology can really bring this value to the table, it's a huge innovation in a way that capital can flow more freely around the globe, looking for right opportunities. Secure, immutable data. Then is blockchain really sufficient to serve capital markets? And are we doing this blockchain technology for technology's sake, or are we doing this for business sake? In fact, I kind of felt last year a lot of blockchain projects were done really for blockchain's sake rather than business sake. But I think this year, more people are realizing the limitations of blockchain, and because now we really want to use this blockchain for real business. Certainly, there's a capacity issue with blockchain. And at the same time, what if hard fork or soft fork happens? So you have a securities. If it is common shares of a certain company, it can be common shares, and they're just digital securities. So it's the same thing. So it's like just like any other stocks, and you're supposed to have 1 million shares, and you got to know exactly where those shares are. But then all of a sudden there's a hard fork. Then what's going to happen on public chain? And if you look at the trading rules of all these publicly listed securities, so OTC trade is fine. It's all P2P. But then if you look at the publicly listed shares and how they trade, there are lots of trading rules. Have you heard the iceberg? So for example, somebody puts an order and they want to sell 1 million shares. But if they want to sell 1 million shares at $10, they're going to kill the share price. So what they do is that they hide it behind. Okay? So they just show 10,000 shares. And if somebody gets 10,000 shares, they show another 10,000. That way they get rid of 1 million. But essentially, the real order there is 1 million shares. Okay? And sometimes this happens. And this happens quite often, in fact, more often than you think. Some companies, they want to just lift their share price. So what do? They put out big news to the market. And share price goes up. And they figured there was some weird trading. So a regulator calls the company, and they investigate, and they decide from, let's say 9:30 a.m. to 9:45 a.m., all the trades, they just cancel them. Okay? Then if those trades are happening on public chain, on Ethereum chain, what are you going to do? Okay. So there are a lot of issues involved with blockchain technology, how to serve particularly those public capital markets. Now, how we approach capital market, so in our case, a security exchange, I had to establish some framework for our developers. How we're going to approach this matter, and how we're going to see the components of technology that we have to build. So the framework goes accounts, issuance, and trading. Accounts, it's really about custodianship. So that's a wallet. But in fact, if you think of a wallet, there are 3 different wallets. Okay? And one is not really a wallet. One is crypto wallet. Since it is a security exchange for security tokens, you cannot exclude those utility tokens. So what do you have to do? You got to have a wallet for crypto exchange. But at the same time, I mean, the crypto tokens, utility tokens. Okay? And you got to have a wallet for security tokens. Why? Because you need, in this case, you need a different custodian policy. Okay? And then you need a cash account. Right? So custodianship is a key issue in the market. In fact, we solved the problem for security tokens, not for the crypto tokens, the utility tokens. Okay? Now, there's a KYC AML issue. KYC AML, we hear a lot about the public chain, KYC AML on public chain, but that becomes really difficult because you cannot, there's privacy issue. You cannot leave those, the private data on public chain. Of course, I think the technology is going to evolve in a way that the KYC AML can happen on public chain, and we can leave the data there. Eventually, I see that there will be a lot of derivative opportunities based on that product. But KYC AML is, again, it's an account issue. I talked about suitability briefly. That's an account issue. For us, the custodianship, for wallet, one of the aspects you have to think about is, for example, the Shamir wallet. What if somebody dies, and here are securities, right? Then you probably have a private key to a lawyer and a banker, and if the owner cannot have an access to that wallet because he's dead, then they got to recover it. Right? Multi-sig, well, everybody knows multi-sig, so I'll skip that one. But what's important to hear is when somebody loses the private key, you got to recover. You got to replace the private key, and also the account got to be recovered. So that's the key custodian matter. Issuance and trading. Again, issuance, you hear about issuance platform, but you issue securities, that doesn't mean anything. So you have these shares in your wallet. If there's no liquidity, what are you going to do with that? Right? Like here, probably you have a private company. Then how do you manage your shares? Do you really give shares to people? No, you just have one cap table, right? On Excel spreadsheet, you write down the name and number of shares. It's very easy. Now, if you're going to just issue those security tokens, what's the point? So a lot of issuance platform you see for security tokens, to me, it doesn't really make sense unless you can create liquidity on the platform. So liquidity is a key element. Transaction costs. So essentially, the public chain transaction cost is much higher than current central database system. So if the transaction cost is higher, essentially, it's not a better contract. So the market doesn't move. Okay? So our approach is we try to use cryptographic receipts. Okay? And then agent-driven cryptographic ledgers, what it means is that basically all these different trading rules and complicated capital market situation, we use an actor model, and transactions are done based on the rules, computational rules in the agents. Okay? And then we deploy Merkle roots to public chain. Clearance settlements, I discussed already. Cause of innovation, I said that's really about digital securities. That's the cause of innovations in capital markets. And because of that, we can reduce the intermediaries. This is the final slide, private chain versus public chain. Proof of authority, that's private chain, right? But well, by the way, I hear POA a lot. So POA, in normal situations, people hear it and they probably think of it as a power of attorney. This is, proof of authority. Recently, I think a lot of people just indicate it as a POA. There's one problem with POA, though. These are nodes in a private chain. If these nodes, why do they have to get involved with a transaction that you are not really part of? Okay? And you don't get any rewards. What about these nodes? And there's a big money that's involved. And if they collude each other, and these are, there are not that many nodes. In Canada, we have 69 broker-dealers. Then if 69 nodes, out of over 50% of those nodes, they decide, you know what, we want to get this deal done, we want to have this certain price, and if they collude. So proof of authority, does it really work? That's something that we keep thinking about. That's why we we just choose these, cryptographic receipts, transparent and faster, cheaper transactions, and deploy market rules to public chain. That's how we got to that strategy. Blockchain technology, I think there's a big hope. I remember when President Kim Dae-jung visited North Korea, I was in New York. And back in those days, the emerging business in New York City was delivering videotapes to your home. And I was watching dial-up internet. President Kim Dae-jung's visiting Pyongyang, and there was like this. He's standing in the airplane, like coming down from the airplane, and then it just stops. And I wait about 2 to 3 minutes, and there's a next scene. Okay. That company, which was cheered and an emerging business, successful business in New York City, delivering video tapes to your home, it's gone now. Okay. And day traders, back in those days, were not a successful business because the system really didn't allow them to be successful. Then, although I indicated some of the limitations of blockchain technology to serve the capital markets, because we have to serve the capital markets, I think we just have to figure out how we use blockchain technology for certain areas and relying on some other areas with the different technologies. But eventually, over 3 to 5 years, I think there will be a great advancement of blockchain technology to serve the capital markets. Probably more complex smart contracts may solve the problems that we face. Again, today we talked about scalability, and with the lots of scalable solutions, who knows, capital markets can be completely served by blockchain technology. Thank you for listening. I'm D.H. Kim, CEO of FinHaven. Again, we're building security exchange for digital securities, and in fact, we're trying to build a global alliance of those exchanges. So if you have any questions, email me. And if you want to work in the United States, not in the United States, in Canada, if you're a pretty good back-end engineer, please contact me. We're still looking for some good engineers. So we can invite you to Vancouver to work there. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So during your presentation, the audience has left many questions to you, so let me ask one of them. The first question is, in my perspective, security tokens still face tons of issues that must be resolved. Until then, I don't think many countries will allow security tokens to be utilized. So when do you think will be the time that security tokens could be actually introduced into daily lives?
Q&A는 그냥 한국말로 답을 하겠습니다. 이게 생각만큼 그렇게 복잡하지가 않습니다. 시큐리티 토큰이라는 게. 왜 그러냐면 증권거래법, 그러니까 Securities Law는 어느 나라든지 다 있거든요. 그러니까 지금 가장 큰 혼돈이 저희 그래서 Secure Token이라는 말을 안 쓴 이유가 토큰이라는 것 때문에 혼동을 하고 거기에서 오는 misperception이 있어요. 토큰이라는 말 때문에. 근데 궁극적으로는 그냥 디지털 시큐리티입니다. 그러니까 결국은 기존에 있는 증권거래법대로 하면 돼요. 단 거기서 걸림돌이 되는 건 이거밖에 없습니다. 제가 아까 말씀드렸듯이 디포지토리가 있고 트랜스퍼 에이전트가 있고 마켓플레이스, 익스체인지가 있고 브로커 딜러가 있다고 그랬잖아요. 그건 결국 페이퍼 쉐어라고 하는 걸 가지고서 트랜잭션을 하려고 하다 보니까 물론 페이퍼 쉐어는 지금은 우리가 없죠. 그냥 컨트랙만 존재할 뿐이죠. 실제로 그 페이퍼 쉐어를 뭐 발행해 가지고 옛날에는 실제 그렇게 했었지만 요즘에는 그렇지 않죠. 단 여러분이 쉐어를 원하면 트랜스퍼 에이전트한테 가 가지고 예를 들어서 내가 마이크로소프트 쉐어 1000주를 가지고 있는데 내 증권사에 가지고 있고 싶지 않으니까 나한테 주식으로 줘 그러면 트랜스퍼 에이전트한테 가면 증서 하나를 이렇게 만들어 줍니다. 1000주 써 가지고 그냥 프린트해서 주는 거예요. 그래서 그거에 관련된 거. 그거를 클래스를 바꿔서 디지털 시큐리티스를 이미 얼라워한 국가들이 있어요. 단 그 국가들에서 캐피털 마켓이 발전돼 있지 않다 보니까 자기네들 법은 돼 있는데 요거를 어떻게 활용해서 할 수 있다라고 하는 걸 아직 모르는 국가들이 있습니다. 일부가. 그래서 그 부분은 기존에 있는 이제 레거시 시스템과 새로 들어오려고 하는 시스템의 그 컨플릭이 있을 뿐이지 실적으로 거기에 대해서 이노베이션을 일으키는 것은 규제적 측면에서는 그렇게 어려운 부분이 아닙니다. 지금은 법적 어려움이라기보다는 인식과의 싸움인 것 같아요. Perception. We're fighting with a perception. I think that's the issue. That's a bigger issue, in fact.
네, 감사합니다. 그럼 두 번째 질문으로 넘어가도록 하겠습니다. If stable token that backed each country uses widely, is it possible to replace foreign exchange market?
I have a fundamental doubt about stablecoins. Well, we have ledgers already. 스테이블코인이 진짜로 이노베이션을 가져오는지에 대해서 저는 좀 약간 상당히 좀 서스피션이 있어요. 그게 이제 더더구나 어려운 점은 뭐냐면 센트럴 뱅크를 거쳐야 되잖아요. 그러니까 기존의 세틀먼트 시스템이나 이런 것들을 극복해서 스테이블코인을 과연 극복할 수 있는 거냐? 만약에 스테이블코인이 극복할 수 있다면 왜 기존 레저 시스템을 가지고서는 못하는 거냐? So I think I don't think so. Is it possible? Maybe possible. I don't think so. Okay. 그 다음에 똑같은 문제가 발생하죠. 거기에 있는 어떤 스테이블 코인에 대해서 거기에 대한 언더라잉 레셋이 있느냐라고 하는 이슈도 발생하겠죠. 그렇죠? 이게 머니 서플라이라고 하는 게 우리가 생각한 것보다 훨씬 더 복잡하기 때문에 스테이블 코인이라는 이슈가 어느 한 국가 경제 전체를 담당해서 그거를 가져가려고 하면 쉽게 말해서 우리가 크레딧 카드를 쓰잖아요. 크레딧 카드를 쓰면 실제 머니 서플라이가 늘어나는 거 아닙니까? 그렇죠? 엄밀히 따지면. 그러니까 그런 부분까지 다 여러분들 다 생각한다고 했을 때 Number one, is it really necessary to have a stable coin? Number two, I think it's a pretty complicated issue to replace the existing currency. Okay. Maybe Bitcoin is a slightly different issue. That's another currency if you want to think of it as a currency. Okay. 근데 이 비트코인이 커런시냐 아니냐라는 이슈를 가지고 얘기를 할 때 마이닝 원래 트래디셔널 마이닝사에서 똑같은 이슈가 항상 있었죠. 골드가 커런시냐 아니냐는 이슈가 있었죠. 옛날엔 골드 리저브 시스템이었으니까 골드가 분명히 커런시였죠. 요즘에 우리가 골드 가지고 가서 물건 사는 건 아니지 않습니까? 물론 그 영국에는 그런 회사도 있습니다. 자기가 골드를 가지고 있으면 그 골드를 가지고 있는 골드를 베이스를 가지고 데빗 카드를 만들어주는 회사도 있기는 있어요. 그래서 현금처럼 쓸 수 있게끔. 네, 아무튼 그건 똑같은 이슈에 걸리겠죠.
네, 답변과 좋은 발표 감사합니다. 이상으로 Q&A를 마무리하도록 하겠습니다. 수고해주신 김도영 대표님에게 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.